Okay, in the last video, we went ahead and talked about what a p-value was and how you compare that to alpha to be able to determine if there's enough evidence from your sample to be able to reject the null hypothesis. And I'm going to tell you, if some of this stuff isn't making sense, it's very hard to understand if you're just doing it online, watching a video. What I would do is wait till we do some examples, ladies and gentlemen. We've only got one step left. Let's do some examples, and that puts it into context, and that may make it a little bit easier to be able to understand all of these steps when we do them. And again, I will give these steps to you. I'll give you the formulas for the test statistics and so forth, and we'll show you how to use your stat app. So again, if you're just feeling like you're totally lost, let us do some examples together in some of the following videos. And then if you still have questions, you can get a hold of me. So what we're going to look at, the last step is once you've determined is there enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis or not, and then we go ahead and we state the conclusion about the claim or about a statement in non-technical terms that people can understand in the context of the situation you're looking at. So again, go to where we left off at. And I believe it is right here. Okay? So, how do you state the conclusion? Well, if your sample data, if the sample data is strong enough to disprove the null hypothesis, then what we say is there is sufficient evidence to support the statement in the alternative hypothesis. We say that whatever and this is where you've got to kind of look back at what the statement was. We just say that the evidence is strong enough to say that your alternative hypothesis could be true. Okay. If the null hypothesis is not rejected, then we say there is not sufficient evidence to support the statement that the alternate hypothesis is true. Now notice we don't say that we accept the null. We just say we fail to reject, because why we do that is, ladies and gentlemen, we are only saying that the null hypothesis could be true. If your sample evidence isn't strong enough to disprove the null hypothesis, we aren't saying that the null hypothesis is true. Okay, we're just saying our sample data wasn't strong enough to say it wasn't true. All right. It's kind of like a court of law where if the defendant is found to be innocent, we don't say they are innocent. We just say the evidence wasn't strong enough to say that they were guilty. They're not guilty. We don't say they're innocent. We just say they are not guilty. Well, the same thing here. If the evidence isn't strong enough to disprove the null hypothesis, we just say that we don't ever say that our evidence supports the null hypothesis. The only way we can do that is if we got data from the entire population. Then we could say the null hypothesis is true. But since we're only using sample data, we can just say our data wasn't strong enough to disprove the null hypothesis or say that the alternative is true. So you got to be real careful of that. Never say support the null hypothesis. And again, so now that is all the steps, ladies and gentlemen, for performing a t-test for a population mean. So in other words, we went ahead and did all of these. If you need to look back at some of the videos, that's fine. But I think it'll make more sense to you, ladies and gentlemen, if we look at some examples, okay? So that's what the next videos will be. There'll be 3 examples, one will be a video for each example that you can follow along on your student example sheet.